In the early hours of a tense Saturday morning, the skies over Tehran erupted with explosions as Israeli warplanes launched a calculated series of airstrikes on Iranian military targets. This unprecedented action, reflecting the growing hostilities between two nations long locked in a covert struggle, marks a significant escalation in the shadowy conflict. Just weeks after Iran's retaliatory missile barrage tested Israel's defenses, the fragile balance of restraint has broken, pushing both nations into a dangerous cycle of aggression. As the world watches, one question looms: how far will this volatile rivalry drive them and the region toward the brink of open conflict? Welcome to In Depth. So tensions in the Middle East have escalated dramatically as the Israeli occupation army launched targeted strikes on Iranian military sites. This operation, framed as retaliation for recent Iranian attacks, raises concerns over a potential cycle of violence in the region.
In a significant escalation in Middle East tensions, the Israeli occupation army conducted targeted strikes on Iranian military sites early on Saturday, October 26th. Israel announced that it had completed precise strikes on military targets in Iran, framing the operation as retaliation for recent attacks allegedly launched from Iran. These strikes followed an Iranian missile barrage on October 1st, in which approximately 200 missiles reportedly targeted Israeli positions, resulting in at least one fatality in the West Bank. Israeli officials characterized the missile barrage as a severe provocation, asserting that Iran had crossed a critical line. An Israeli military spokesperson warned that if the regime in Iran were to make the mistake of beginning a new round of escalation, Israel will be obligated to respond. In Tehran, multiple explosions were reported in the early hours, with state media showcasing the city's air defense systems intercepting incoming projectiles. Iranian sources indicated that military bases in western Tehran had been attacked, although initial reports did not confirm significant damage or casualties. International reactions varied. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, speaking in Samoa, reiterated Israel's right to self-defense while urging Iran to refrain from retaliation. Meanwhile, reports indicate forced execution, but emphasized that American forces were not involved. The attack elicited strong international reactions as numerous countries condemned Israel's military actions against Iran. This recent exchange highlights the fragile nature of Israel-Iran relations, with both sides poised for potential further escalation in an already volatile region.
Now, joining us right now is Major General Havis El-Sharouf, the director of the Palestine Institute for National Security, to discuss the recent Israel-Iran tensions and their impact on regional security. Major General, welcome to our program. First of all, how do you assess Israel's strikes on Iran's air defenses, particularly the S-300 defense system in Isfahan?
Well, I think that Israel's strike to Iran missiles wasn't as expected and as per the Israeli threats. Israel have threatened to strike nuclear sites, yet I think the US has pressured Iran in order to not to widen the scale of the war by not targeting nuclear sites. Hence, this strike wasn't as painful as was expected, and the Iranian reaction shows so. I think Iran will use its proxies in the Middle East to retaliate, and I think that everybody rejects that this leads to a more an all front war, since it will have consequences in both Iran and Israel.
Okay, and given that, do you think that Israel's strategy of targeting perhaps less critical components of Iran's air defense, and also, as you mentioned, not going for the nuclear facilities, does this seem to indicate an intention to avoid perhaps a larger conflict?
Well, I think this strike, Israel has tried to avoid expanding the escalation, and it tried to target specific military sites and tried also to test the capabilities of Iranian air defense. Israel wanted from this strike to deter Iran, and I don't think Israel has achieved all its objectives from these airstrikes, given what they have announced earlier. Again, regional countries have refused to allow Israeli planes to use its airspace, and I think most of the regional countries reject the escalation, and at the very end, at the end of the day, this airstrike wasn't as expected, and the damage sustained wasn't that big for Iran. I don't think Iran will retaliate directly to Israel, because I think this would be this might lead to more confrontations, taking in consideration that the damages sustained by both parties is not that huge.
And given that we have conflicts already happening in Lebanon, also the war on Gaza, how might these actions affect the security situation across the Middle East?
Israel has an agenda that they would like to achieve, and they have objectives to achieve during the war in Gaza. Still, they couldn't achieve. And in Lebanon, there is Hezbollah. They have the military power, and they have more control. Hezbollah has a set of targets in Israel. Recently, they have targeted the specific military sites, and Hezbollah didn't target any civilian buildings, but rather targeted military sites within Israel. This shows that Hezbollah has the power and has a set of weapons they can use to target Israel. Israel would like, on the other hand, to achieve a set of objectives for Hezbollah in Lebanon, and they want to draw Hezbollah back to Litani area and the Green area. And Hezbollah, on the other hand, doesn't agree on this. The Lebanese government also do not agree on this. They would like to implement the decree of 2001. And if Israel would like a ceasefire, then Blinken should pay a visit to the area. And the Security Council also have issued a ceasefire resolution. If there is a keen interest by the international society to intervene, they should show so. However, the US is protecting Israel, and Netanyahu is waiting for Trump to come back to the American administration, and he knows very well Trump's stance. Trump policies differ from that of Biden and gives a priority to Israel, and they will become a police state in the Middle East and a superpower in the Middle East. But at the end of the day, Israel, whether Trump is in the American administration or not, both the Palestinian and the Lebanese people will hold their ground, and they will not leave their lands. They will keep continuing fighting the Israeli occupation. This is our policy that is based on resilience, despite the Israeli occupation and despite their destroying our lands in Gaza and in Lebanon.
Okay, it's very interesting what you say about a potential Trump administration vis-à-vis Israel. To respond to this strike by Israel. Do you think there's any chance that Iran might respond itself? And what would that mean for the security across the region and also the impact on the security situation in Palestine?
Iran has its boxes in many Arab countries, and they work with Iran. Iran would like to become a super regional power. And I think using its proxies, they could, these proxies, it's time for everybody to, whether Hamas and other parties, to start thinking in a logical way and to reassess their positions, which requires to stop their losses and the bloodbath in Palestine and to return back to the Arab countries, because Palestine is isolated away from the Arab countries. I think it's time for Hamas to resort to logic and to get back to the Palestinians and to unite them. And perhaps then the regional countries like Egypt, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia could help us in order to work on the political and diplomatic levels in order to get back to the right track and to achieve the Arab the aspirations of the Arab. And I think a couple of days ago, Putin has declared that he is with the two countries solution. Hence, I think it's about time for the Palestinians to be united once again and to have our Qibla as Quds.
Now, to what extent would you say that the events, well, the situation between Israel and Iran, and of course with Hezbollah in Lebanon, is taking away from what's happening in Gaza? Is this a deliberate play by Israel to mask what was a very unpopular, in many parts of the world, attack and war on Gaza? Is this taking away from the suffering of the Palestinian people right now?
Israel is doing its calculations on different levels and different fronts in Gaza. The situation in Gaza is now weak. Israel now is implementing the general's plan by opening a new front with Iran and Hezbollah. The Israelis are somehow distracting the world and trying to make them look away from the massacres and that's occurring in Gaza and the destruction of infrastructures. Everybody now is talking about the strike, the Israeli strike to Iran. Hence, they are trying to make us look the other way instead of focusing on the conflict and the genocides that is occurring in Gaza. I think Netanyahu is always doing his own tactics that serve his own interest instead of finding a resolution. He is dragging Israel to more confrontations, and this is not for the benefit of Israel because they are causing a lot of problems in the region.
Now, of course, many countries across the region normalized relations with Israel. How different are things now, and what do the tensions that have arisen, and of course everything that has happened in the last year or more that have changed these situations?
The countries that have normalized the relations with Israel, these are countries with their free wills. However, they haven't really succeeded in reaching their objectives. At the very end, this serves only Israel. We always call the Arab countries to stand by our side and to support the resilience of the Palestinians with a capital, with our capital, Al-Quds. All Arab countries support the presence of a Palestinian state. However, at the end, regardless of all the changes and shifts in positions, this will not lead to success as long as as long as the Palestinians are still carrying arms and fighting for destiny, despite the destruction of the Israelis to their lands. The Palestinians will always sabotage all efforts that aim to kill their dreams. I think all the normalization process will fail by the Palestinians. I would like to thank all the Arab countries who call for the right of Palestinians to get back to their country and to have their own state.
Well, you mentioned the Arab states there. What diplomatic and security measures could Arab states adopt to prevent further escalations between Israel and Iran?
I think the Arab countries now, I think they might call for a rapid meeting, a prompt meeting in order to take decisions and perhaps call for an emergency session at the Security Council in order to find a resolution for the Arab-Israeli conflict. The Arab countries have many cards at hand they could use in order to stop the bloodbath, and the bloodbath whether in Gaza or in Lebanon. I think the Arab countries do have the leverage to pressure the US and Israel by calling an emergency session at the Security Council and perhaps start a peace process. And they could also call for Israel's withdrawal from all the occupied lands.
Well, some very powerful words and some very interesting points that give us all food for thought. Thank you, Major General Herbis El-Sharouf, the Director of the Palestine Institute for National Security, joining us from Ramallah. Thank you very much for your insights. Israel has carried out airstrikes on military targets in Iran, further escalating regional tensions. The Israeli military targeted missile and drone sites in Tehran, Khuzestan and Alam, citing the strikes as a response to earlier Iranian missile attacks. The Guardian reported that the US described the operation as extensive but confirmed it did not participate, while emphasizing its goal of deterring future attacks. Footage from Tehran showed air defenses responding during the strikes. US officials characterized the strikes as precise and reiterated that, while the US did not participate, it supported Israel's actions. With both nations on high alert, Iran has reserved the right to respond, raising the risk of further destabilization in the already volatile Middle East. Now with us is Ambassador Mohammad Hagezi, a former Egyptian Assistant Foreign Minister, to explore how the Israel and Iran tensions intersect with US politics and Middle Eastern diplomacy. Welcome, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. How do you view the timing of Israel's strike on Iran's air defenses in relation to perhaps the upcoming US elections? Could it be a calculated move to try and influence American politics, perhaps?
Well, I think we were all expecting this Israeli attack. Fortunately, it came in the framework that has been designed by the American administration, not to target the energy sources and installations, not to target the Iranian nuclear facilities, so that they confine their attack to the military bases, and what is truly was the sign that there is, in spite of the escalation, to me, there is a calculated hope that the Iranians were in a position to observe the attack and its effect on its military bases, and through maybe a restrained mood, we can pass the very dangerous moments that we lived within the Israeli-Iranian confrontation. And the case in front of us is very clear. The United States, 10 days before elections, wouldn't like to see a huge war and escalation in the confrontation between Israel and Iran. The decision of war or waging war on Iran is an American decision, not an Israeli decision. So Israel may retaliate to the second wave of rockets attack from Iran, and this calculated response will pave the way, to me, to more calm in this front. And I think now we have to wrap up. We have to wrap up situation in southern Lebanon, in Gaza, and in relation to this attack. I think the Iranian will be wise enough not to go into a tic-tac or another escalation of violence. The position now of the two parties is that we have to concentrate on regional solution and security, and this was the message of the Iranian foreign minister tour in the region, where I think Iran will be very careful in any response in order not to drag the Israelis to much more retaliation and maybe the escalation that might lead the United States troops in the region to join hands with Israel. Iran for long was quite aware of the Israeli trials for many years, like 25 years, since the presence of 2004 of Benjamin Netanyahu in the office. He was always trying to drag the United States into full confrontation with Iran. Attacking the nuclear facilities, there is 17 positions of the program in Iran, and I don't think that Israel, showing their attack yesterday, are able to do that without the help of the United States, who will avoid two things. It has cautioned the Israeli attack on energy facilities in Iran, and second, the Israeli attack on the nuclear facilities in Iran that needs full support from the United States, because Israel has shown yesterday that it doesn't have the strength or the enough power to attack without the United States, who believe that a war in the Middle East will not help anyone, or a war between Iran and Israel will help no one in the coming few days before election. And I think both sides now have understood that the Iranians have taken their revenge and the Israelis have retaliated, and full stop. I think this American full stop is very important.
Now, of course, things could change quite significantly. We have the elections coming up, as we mentioned, and it's either going to be one of two people in the White House in January. It's either going to be Kamala Harris or it's going to be Donald Trump returning for a second time. Do you believe that Netanyahu's approach towards Iran might be shaped by one or other of the administrations, and how might those two administrations be different?
Well, I think the attack by Israel this morning is a calculated attack designed by the United States, and that shows you that the three fronts, being it Gaza or Hezbollah in Lebanon or Iran, is designed, American design by excellence, and Israel is just the contractor, the war contractor that is doing the action within the range and framework and calculation of the United States. So the attack on Iran was well designed and calculated within what the United States can live with. They cannot live as well as the world community to an attack on the energy installations in Iran, causing a huge damage to the stability, the Iranian flow of energy resources, being it petroleum or gas. And this is exactly what the West cannot carry during the months of the winter that has entered already, or during the course of the Ukrainian-Russian war that have cut a lot of the energy resources from international market. The second is that attacking the Iranian 17 nuclear facilities will not be helpful, but will not be within the range of the Israelis. What have happened this morning, or the Israeli attack, is within the range that the American administration accepts and the Israeli are capable of doing, reaching to Iran, attacking military installation, and that's it. More than that will lead us to a new administration. And I think it is mark the time of wrapping up, the situation, the escalation between Israel and Iran. And I think the Iranians are wise enough not to further attack the Israelis to the extent that the Israelis might retaliate in a way that the Iranians might face a situation that they have and their arms in the region attack Israel from within, where the United States will be pulled to action. I think the Iranian leadership is looking more to the stability of the region, and the time of wrapping up between Israel and the Iranian has come, and I think we will stop at this stage. Israelis taking the revenge, and Iranians have already done what is necessary to retaliate from the Israelis' previous attacks. Now, the situation in southern Lebanon is ready for wrapping up. Everybody is talking and agreeing on the implementation of 1701, the UN Security Council resolution, through which the two parties have abstained from implementation since 2006, and now time has come for the two parties to seek its implementation, and seeing in it the opportunity to have pulled the situation from Gaza to southern Lebanon, believing that this is an easy ride, particularly after the killing of their general leadership, or the Hassan Nasrallah, and the top leaders, the Secretary General and the top leaders of Hezbollah. Failing in their calculation, they saw resistance and return of Hezbollah to its power, to its ability of hurting Israel, to the extent that we now seeing the fight going into Israel for the first time, Mark, after 1948, since the establishment of the State of Israel. That war is waged within and inside Israeli cities, including the attacks we saw on the military base, very well calculated, and even the attack on Benjamin Netanyahu premises. So Hezbollah hasn't lost the war, so that Israel, when they claim to implement 1701 modified, they have received a refusal, a rejection from the Lebanese talking on behalf of Hezbollah, and Prime Minister Mikati and Mr. Gumblat, the Lebanese leader. So the three Lebanese presidents have utterly rejected the Israeli trial of amending 1701, and they informed Hochstein, the American envoy, that this is not possible. And I think Israel at the final end. So we wrap up here that the 1701 gives a solution where the Hezbollah troops will be pulled out of the task to the northern Litani borders, and the blue line between southern Litani River and the blue line will be a terrain for the national Lebanese army, supported by the UN forces, UNIFIL.
And now, of course, you did mention that this particular Israeli attack on the Iranian military facilities was the architects of this was the United States. So what might this mean for Israeli and United States and Iranian relations? Of course, we've had the stalled nuclear negotiations. What does that mean for the US-Iran relations?
No, I think the Iranians, deep inside, appreciate what the United States did to curb on the Israeli ambition to attack facilities randomly in Iran, including energy and the nuclear facilities. I think what the United States have done was wise. They know, even the Iranians, they knew that the Israelis will attack them. The nature of this attack, if it is left to the right-wingers in Israel. They will go to a larger scale where they will drag in, if Iran retaliated, the United States into confronting Iran. I think President Biden clearly informed Benjamin Netanyahu in one of their very known calls that war with Iran is an American decision. It is not an Israeli decision. So the Americans knows very well the danger of attacking energy resources, gas or oil in Iran, or attacking the nuclear facilities, where it will definitely call for a huge Iranian response, as well as Hezbollah and many other supporters of Iran in the region. Even it will put the American troops and bases to a great danger. So I think Iranian relations with the United States will remain, and the Americans appreciate the importance of the Iranian oil flows to the international market, including to the United States, that consumes 22 million barrels of oil, only 1/3 of it covered by the United States production, and the rest are coming from many markets, particularly the Iranian market or the Iranian supply. So I think the relations with the United States will go on, and maybe in the new administrative or the newcomers in the White House, they should look at the 5+1 nuclear agreement and move further. When I spoke to you, Mark, about wrapping up in Iran-Israeli relations, now you culminate by addressing the American-Iranian relations, and I identified that these relations will go and will pass this critical moment, understanding that it is the United States that has put the refrain, or has put the stoppage required for the Israeli attacks on Iran, limiting it to the border where the Iranian can live with. And I think this is the qualification of what's happened since the morning. The third wrap-up that I wanted to make before we ended the wrap-up, we spoke about Iran, Israel, U.S. Issue. We spoke about Hezbollah, Israeli. Mark, can you put down the noise next to you? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So back again. Okay. You. So back. Okay. Thank you. So back again to Hezbollah 1701 UN Security Council resolution being implemented without amendments, and if any further amendments required by Israel, it will be given to the Lebanese army and to the agenda of the UNIFIL, not to the Israelis. The third wrap-up that we should make to complete the three confrontations that is going on Iran, Israel, Hezbollah, Israel, and southern Lebanon, and the Gaza situation. I think in the past few days, as you may have followed, an important delegation from Hamas was in Cairo for important talks with high officials. A week before, the chief of Mossad, the Israeli intelligence service, as well as the Shabak, the internal security chief, was in Cairo. And I think we all, after the visit of Secretary of State Blinken and the meeting he held in different capitals in the region, and his meeting with foreign ministers in London, shows that, or explain that there is a proposition, maybe promoted by Egypt, where they call for a shorter period ceasefire in which a limited exchange of prisoners and hostages that will allow urgent humanitarian assistance to flow without Israeli confronting or obstacling them. Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati yesterday spoke to Blinken for a very long session where they have discussed not only Gaza and the urgency it requires to put an end to the Israeli carnage in Gaza and particularly in northern parts of Gaza and in especially in the camp of Jabalia, where war crimes are committed in front of us on camera. And I'm sure that the Israelis and their supporters should watch out because the International Court of Justice will issue its ruling on the Israeli ethnic cleansing and genocide activities, as well as the International Criminal Court issuing the stoppage for criminal activities of both Netanyahu and his Minister of Defense, among many others, I believe, not only in Israel, but those who have supported Israel to the extent that they have exercised this very inhumane campaign that has been described as a betrayal of humanity.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Ambassador Hegezi, who is joining us there, and thank you so much for your valuable analysis on these geopolitical implications. Thank you very much. Now, Israel conducted airstrikes on military targets in Iran in response to a recent missile attack involving 180 missiles. The strikes, which targeted missile manufacturing and air defense sites, occurred in several waves over several hours and were designed to minimize the risk of significant retaliation from Iran. In response, Iran cancelled flights and reported limited damage, confirming the deaths of 2 soldiers. The Wall Street Journal reported that the US was informed in advance but did not participate, advising Israel to avoid targeting critical infrastructure. Analysts suggest that the strikes may provide Iran with an opportunity to de-escalate the situation without losing face, marking a shift in the long-standing conflict as direct exchanges between the two nations increase. The US has emphasized its readiness for any Iranian retaliation while expressing a desire to prevent further violence. The situation reflects a significant change in the Israel-Iran dynamic, as both countries have openly engaged in military actions against each other. The rising regional violence is also linked to the ongoing conflicts in Gaza and Lebanon. Now, joining us to discuss this further is Dr. Majid Boudin. You can tell us how to pronounce that. Professor of International Law, to discuss the legal aspects of the recent military actions between Israel and Iran. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
Mr. Dr. Boudin. Now, how do you view the legality of Israel's strike on Iran's air defenses under international law? Is this a legitimate act of self-defense?
Well, as far we have noted that these strikes, they did not target civilians, which is at least a good thing, and a change in these retaliation. Well, under international law, first of all, we have to avoid targeting civilians and infrastructure. When it is targeting military, and when you have one side of this war, let's say, has also been attacked, he can retaliate. So retaliation is not forbidden by international law. What is forbidden is that retaliation should be proportionate. Second, it should not target civilians and infrastructure. And in this framework, we can see that This is not a very huge escalation, but we never know. This could go or could climb to an escalation. But for the time being, it's forecasted that this will, after what Israel has done this morning or last night, and it did not go further, the desescalation will start, and everybody is hoping that it will start. First of all, the United States has drawn the red lines to Israel to not target nuclear or oil infrastructure. And this was respected, at least by Israel for the time being. Now what Iran will do? Maybe Iran will keep it there and will use that there is no casualties or or big casualties or not huge damages, and they will desescalate. And but maybe they could retaliate again, but in a smaller scale or in different ways, but in a smaller scale in all possibilities. The other thing, in the government of Netanyahu could now desescalate. He did what he wanted to do to satisfy the public opinion and to show that they reacted and they made these reprisals, and it will end there. Maybe he will use this window of the American elections where there is no real control on him, and he will do another action, or maybe he will try to do other actions in Gaza and in south of Lebanon. These are the scenarios, but it looks like that it will be a kind of desescalation for the time being, but this is not for granted, because Netanyahu has these 15 days, and if his goals are not achieved after the 5th of November in the elections in the US, he will not have the same free opportunities to achieve what he wanted to achieve. But this doesn't mean that the matter is over. Gaza is destroyed. The people, we have around 45,000 people now dead for nothing. And this is a huge crime. And this is a matter that will not be covered up. And in South Lebanon, we have several thousands of people killed. So all this should be also stay on the table. But for the time being, everybody is calling for turning the page and opening a new page where we should find a solution, because here we have the evidence that military actions will not bring a solution for the Middle East war, for the Middle East crisis, for the Middle East problem. And this dispute should be resolved now by other means. Everybody has shown his strength. The map has been redrawn, the political map, and so now the Palestinians must try to bring leadership to be on the table. The Palestinian state should be recognized to participate in the negotiations. Lebanon should recover its sovereignty, and the army in Lebanon should go and control the south of Lebanon, and the states in the area and the region should now double their efforts and increase their efforts to go and find not bring anything. It will not bring a solution, a long-term solution, and this problem should end in a way or another.
Now, Dr. Boudin, I know you mentioned that everyone is calling for an end to the hostilities between Israel and Iran, and now they have both flexed their muscle a little bit. But are there any international legal obligations for Israel and Iran to de-escalate?
Of course, there is an international obligation, which is first of all, if we take it from the International Court of Justice decisions, it's clear that Israel is an occupying state to an occupied state, which is Palestine. And this now is clear, and this is it's a norm, it's a standard in international law. Israel cannot continue to occupy the Palestinian territories. And the second thing, that Israel, as an occupying force, an occupying state, has the obligation to preserve the safety, the lives and of people, and the security of the Palestinians and the infrastructure. What Israel has done, they have destroyed 45,000 people. They have destroyed the infrastructure. Maybe we have other injuries like 100,000. So this is something that should be, first of all, it should be stopped. Second, we should have a decision from Israel to engage itself to not repeat this. Third, we have to open the file of the indemnification for these damages, the human lives and the infrastructure. Second, regarding Lebanon, Israel has no right to go and target the civilians in Lebanon, to target the infrastructure in Lebanon. Of course, they can target Hamas and they can target Hezbollah as military forces, but they cannot target in any way the civilians. Now, between Israel and Iran, there is no, they can retaliate one to each other, but at the end of the day, they should stop this war directly or indirectly, and they cannot continue to escalate because they are putting in danger the whole region, and they are causing a lot of damages to persons and to lives and to the economy of the region, and this has a cost. And these two states must now de-escalate to obey to their obligation to put an end to the war, and then we will open the other side. How we are going to compensate this war, how we're going to end it, how we're going to restore the rights of the Palestinians, of the Lebanese state, and of the Palestinian state. And this should come through negotiations. But to have the negotiations on equal footing, we have to, the international community should recognize the Palestinian state, so the Palestinian state can represent the Palestinian people and can be partner and part of these negotiations and of the solution. And so this is the drawing of the map. So the idea that was put before, that from the negotiations we will make rise a Palestinian state. This is not workable. It's not legally acceptable. It's not politically acceptable. From legal point of view, it's not acceptable. So we have to recognize the Palestinian state before, as a condition, as a precondition. So this is a sine qua non condition. So without this condition, we have no possibility to have these solutions.
Now, looking with your expertise in international law, and we're talking about recognizing a Palestinian state. But to what extent does the existing international legal framework offer effective mechanisms for conflict resolution, in this case, whether it be Israel and Iran, or Israel and Lebanon, or the war on Gaza?
Well, first of all, for the technicality, the legal technicity of the matter, for the Palestinian state first. Palestinian state, to be recognized, we should not put the conditions to have borders settled. We have to. This is not an issue. We can recognize the state, and according to the resolution of the United Nations and of the Security Council, the situation in the Palestinians, the situation of the Palestinian state are to be recognized with the borders of 1967. So, and we cannot say that the Palestinian state doesn't have control on his territory, so it doesn't exist. And here they say that the fact or the existence of facts will create the law. This is wrong, because this should be admitted, and nobody has admitted that. So the Palestinians, even if they don't have control on their land, they did not admit that the occupied territories or the settlers are part of Israel or under the control of Israel.
Okay.
So
Well,
this way it doesn't work. So we have to recognize the Palestinian state as it is in the borders of 67, even if there is not effective control. And the international community, if now Europe, after Spain and after Norway, Ireland, will recognize the Palestinian state as such, and the US will recognize it, then the solution will start to be on the run.
okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Woodine, for your insights and on the legal matters, and of course on the wider conflict as well. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Now, as the echoes of conflict linger, and both Israel and Iran are caught in a cycle of retaliation, and the region stands at a precipice. The horizon darkens with uncertainty as diplomacy wavers in the shadow of military might, leaving peace a distant and fragile hope. Thank you for joining us on this special episode of In Depth today, on the day that Israel attacked Iran. Thanks for watching.